guys, good morning and happy new year. It's Jason Flame with the Master Motivation Podcast, getting ready to bring some more motivation, inspiration, and education for this brand new year with an awesome guest. What a way to kick it off. Let me introduce him right away. This is Captain Nick Odenath, who is a veteran law enforcement leader with over 2 decades of experience, currently serving as Chief of Police for the City of Moorpark. Beginning his career with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, he has worked across nearly every facet of policing, from SWAT and narcotics to financial crimes and human trafficking investigations. Nationally recognized as an expert in combating human trafficking, Nick trains and supports task forces across the country while holding a degree in psychology from California Lutheran University. Deeply committed to service, he remains actively involved in the Moorpark community through leadership and through Rotary service. So, happy to have you, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason, for having me. It's an honor to be here.
I know that there are a lot of people that commented and were excited to jump in. So if you are watching live and you have questions for Nick, please just drop those in the comments. And while you're at it, do us a favor and share the video. Go to Master Motivation Podcast on YouTube and subscribe. And Nick, just give me kind of heads up. How's your New Year going so far? I mean, we're 2 days in. How was Christmas? Tell me about life.
It's been good. Yeah, I mean, so for me, always the big concern is what is crime going to look like during the holidays? What is it going to be like in the city? And so we're a 365 organization. We never stop. So that is always primary, keeping in touch with our supervisors during the holidays, checking in with the team to making sure that they're doing okay. A lot of them obviously are away from family, working during Christmas, working during New Year's. And so that being first, everything's great on that end. And then for me, it's a great opportunity to be able to spend time with family. We had some extended family come into town, which is always nice. My brother and his family. And so just a little bit of relaxation and enjoying the family and getting to do things with them, which is always great.
Yeah, and you guys are working. The organization is working 365 days a year. Often, everybody in your agency is working holidays. How does that affect family life for you, for some of the other officers? I have a lot of friends in law enforcement, and I know that their families visit them at the station on New Year's or Christmas or Thanksgiving or what's that like? Because I don't live that life. So what's that like for you?
It takes some adjusting. I remember vividly my wife, they invite family to come to the very first day of the academy. So you're about to embark on this new career, going through a very stressful academy. The first day the family comes there and the TAC officers explain to them, listen, your spouse is entering a life of service. And in this type of service, that means that they'll often not be there for Christmas. They won't be there for Thanksgiving. They'll be working late nights. They're supposed to get off at a certain hour and they get held over for several hours. This is the life that you're entering. So while you're going through the academy, you have to make sure, is this something that your spouse is able to do? Is it something that you're able to do? And if it's not, this is the time to have that conversation. And so once you get into it, especially when you're new, you get those shifts. Mm-hmm. As the new person on the beat, you're the one working Christmas, you're the one working New Year's. And I remember I went through patrol training in Thousand Oaks, and I got off training mid-December, and I had an 18-hour shift Christmas Eve. I had an 18-hour shift Christmas Day, and then same thing, New Year's Eve, 18-hour shift, and then on New Year's, 18-hour shift. That's just the reality. If people are able to take the time off, new people are going to fill in and cover for them. We're really good here at the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. People are willing to step up. If you've got small kids at home and you want to be there for them during Christmas, they'll step in and cover your shift for a few hours so you can do that. So we do try to help each other out. But the reality is, yes, 24/7, 365, we're working, right? There's somebody from the sheriff's department out there working, whether it's in patrol capacity, as an investigator in our jail facilities. It's nonstop. It never ends.
Yeah. Well, you said it best. I mean, you're entering a career of service. And number one, before I go any further, thank you for your service and for everybody in your department, all of our law enforcement. I mean, people just don't really step back to think sometimes of the sacrifice that you make for all of us. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Let's dive into a couple questions here, and I apologize. There's a little bit of a lag on the internet speed there, but we'll work through it. You've worked nearly every role in law enforcement. What experiences most shaped your leadership style today as chief of police?
So there's a number of experiences through my career. I mean, I've been with the sheriff's office for over 24 years and have had the opportunity to work a number of different roles. But for me, there's a few moments in my career that really stand out. And that going through the academy, it helped me grow up a lot. So I went through the academy at 22, and it's a stress academy. So, think of all the things that come along with stress inoculation, yelling, the screaming from TAC officers, sleep deprivation. They're testing your ability to think under stress, think when you haven't slept in a long time. They're also going to test you to make sure that you make the right decisions, that you don't take shortcuts. And so that really helped me grow up. And that was a 6-month process. And then from that point, going through the jails and going into patrol, again, a lot of experiences there where you're dealing with people in the worst times in their life. And it's call after call, you're going to scenes where somebody's experienced a significant loss, where somebody's gone through a very serious situation where they were victimized, and you have to work and help them, and you have to maintain your calm and cool through that. And that helps you grow and develop your emotional intelligence. And I'm a firm believer in emotional intelligence. I think it is a primary piece that's needed for law enforcement officers, really for anybody in public service. You have to be able to show empathy. You have to have self-regulation. You have to have self-awareness. So those skills start to develop early in my career. And then from that point, probably the hardest job that I had in the sheriff's office was as a human trafficking investigator. It's so unique and it's so specialized. I think in the industry of law enforcement, it's still somewhat misunderstood on the amount of work that it takes and the amount of collaboration in order to be successful in those types of cases. And it really helped me step out of my comfort zone and push me. And any opportunity you have to push yourself, step out of your comfort zone, is going to help you grow and develop, and it's going to build those leadership skills. And now I can take those experiences and what I've learned from them and apply them in my role as police chief of Moorpark and as a captain with the sheriff's office.
Well, thanks for sharing all of that. And thank you, Robert Perez, for jumping in and watching. He had a comment for you. I don't know if you can see it on your side. But he said, Nick is the best. We're so blessed to have him in Moorpark. And I agree. Through Rotary, I got to know a little bit more about you, and something we kind of skipped over going right into the career is you went to Cal Lu, which I'm excited to say that my son is transferring there in January, so he's getting ready to go there. But you went there and you played football, right?
That's correct.
And
yeah,
you
I was
were a quarterback
to play. I was the quarterback at Cal Lu. Yeah.
And where did you come from?
So I grew up in Orange County, and I went to Orange Lutheran High School and was the quarterback there. And we had a lot of success at Orange Lutheran. This is as the program was really starting to develop. We had a brand new coach come in my freshman year at Orange Lutheran, and he built the program, and now it's become a nationally ranked team, most years. When I first went there, nobody knew who the school was, but built it up, and we had a lot of success. And from that point, was recruited to play at Cal Lutheran University and play quarterback there. I played there for 3 years, then realized that I didn't have a career in the pros. I was too small, too short, and it was time to get serious about finding a career.
And so going to Cal Lu is what brought you to the Ventura County area. Is that right?
Yeah, so Ventura County wasn't even on my radar as a child, and it wasn't until I came up to the Cal Lutheran campus, visited, and saw how beautiful it was, and I really fell in love with the county. And I stayed on campus all 4 years and enjoyed every minute of it. I mean, I do it again in a heartbeat. It was a wonderful experience. It's also where I met my future wife. So my wife was from Newbury Park. She transferred into Cal Lutheran my senior year, her junior year, where we met, and the rest is history. We were married. I applied to the sheriff's office and obviously stayed in Ventura County.
That's super cool. That's super cool. I don't know if you knew or if I told you, but I actually grew up in Newbury Park and graduated from Newbury Park High School as well.
Oh, I had no clue. Okay.
Yeah, class of
That's
'92.
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
Yep. So a little bit in common there. I want to go back. You were talking about learning how to have empathy and how to have patience and self-regulation. I shared with you, and that Jackie and I both went through the Citizens Academy here in Moorpark, which was amazing and awesome. I went on a ride along here in Moorpark, but even prior to that, I went on a ride along in Oxnard for the Ventura County Leadership Academy assignment. And I was so blown away, like just riding all day long and kind of witnessing the interactions that the officers had, with the community. Some really good and some not so good. And I was just, the comment that I had to both the ones that I rode with was, how can you remain so calm when someone is being so terrible to you? I mean, there's it was far worse in Oxnard, I will say that. But it was just, I was amazed. I mean, I was blown away. I was blown away by the patience. But one thing too that I noticed across the board is it was very consistent, because the answers were very consistent, and the way that they're trained was very consistent with what I hear from you and from others in your leadership. It's obviously part of the training. I mean, it's something that they get used to in a way, or like you said, inoculated through their training. So talk about that just a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, so the process to become a law enforcement officer is terribly extensive. So even before the training kicks in, you're being evaluated to see, do you have the right personality and the right traits to potentially make it to become a law enforcement officer. And especially in the state of California, the bar is set very high, and so in Ventura County Sheriff's Office is a good example. So for everybody that applies to become a deputy sheriff with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, 1% will make it through the academy and actually become a deputy sheriff. That's how many people are apply and pushed out of the process at some point because they don't meet the high standards. And really throughout California, those standards are very similar. So you go through all this, you go through a background process. They look at the last 10 years of your life, and they look at everything from your credit, your finances. They'll go talk to neighbors that you haven't talked to in 10 years and ask them, hey, how was this person as a neighbor? How did they treat you? Even if it's just in passing. So they go into great detail. And if you're fortunate enough to get hired on, that's when the real work begins, because like I mentioned earlier, the Sheriff's Academy is a stress academy where you are really tested, and you're tested in every moment of that 6 months. And really the goal is to weed people out who are not committed and passionate about being a law enforcement officer. So that's the basis. And then from that point, once you get to the academy, that's when the real training begins. They give you the baseline in the academy, but then you go through, in our case, a jail training program where they teach you how to work with people who are incarcerated. You then go out to patrol. It's the same thing. You go through another very extensive training program where they teach you how to engage with people who are going through crisis, like we talked about, or who may not care for law enforcement. You know, maybe they've had a bad experience in their past, or maybe they just don't. They see a person in uniform and it creates a reaction. You have to be able to maintain your cool and your calm throughout each one of those. And if you're not able to, so you may have done 5 years in our jail system as a deputy, gone out to patrol, gone through training, and if you can't meet those high standards, you'll be let go. So again, it's that consistency and that training. So by the time you're out on patrol, you've got off to training, you're really working with the best of the best. I mean, these are individuals who are practicing, like we talked about, those develop social skills. They have self-awareness, they have self-regulation, they've developed empathy, but they also still have the motivation to continue to do the job day in and day out. And that is key. If you don't have the motivation, ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to burn out.
Yeah. And what are some stats? Like how many people apply for the academy, don't make it through, or how many people go into the academy that don't make it through, and then how many people get hired on and don't continue from there? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't have the exact numbers of how many applicants we get year in and year out. It does vary from year to year, depending on just the what's going on, and if we've got openings, that'll change it, obviously. But as far as the academy goes, it's not uncommon. I mean, I'll use my academy class as an example. We started off with about 60 cadets to start the academy. We ended with less than 30. So
Wow.
about 50% of the class washed out because of one thing or another. And sometimes it's injuries, you know, because obviously there's a physical component associated with the academy. But sometimes it's just the stress was too much. This wasn't what they expected, and they realized at that point it's not for them. You know, some people, we get to the range and do firing drills. They realize, you know what, I can't shoot a gun. Like that's not something I have in me. This is a time to step out. And the TAC officers remind people, hey, if at any point during this process you feel like this isn't for you, now's the time to get out. Get out during the academy before you get into this job and you're going to experience that burnout again. If you don't have that motivation, desire to put on the uniform each day and come into work, then this job isn't for you. And you really should look for another job.
So about, in your case, in your academy, 50%, more than 50% did not follow through. And typically, I mean, again, on an average, how many people get hired on and within the first couple years, figure at that point that it's not for them and that's not the life for them?
Usually after the academy, it's much lower. At that point, you've been tested and you've made it through, and people will stick around. And sometimes there's life circumstances that change. You know, you may have a medical diagnosis that prevents you from being in law enforcement, or you may have a life situation that changes that. It causes you to relocate. But really, for the most part, you know, barring a medical injury of some sort, or a life circumstance change, people are in it for the long haul. They're making, this is a career. Obviously, it's a career decision. You want to be in a life of service, and this is something that you've chosen for your life.
So I mean, so the academy really does all the weeding out, and so that's where we find the right people. You know, you brought this up, and it just made me think. You know, some people just don't appreciate, and some people don't like cops. How much of the media and movies and what you see on social media do you think plays into that?
I think it's a big piece. It's certainly bigger than when I started even. You think about where we've come in the 24 years that I've been in law enforcement, and media and information is now at the touch of your hands, right? I mean, you're walking around with a media device constantly in our phones, right?
Hmm.
They've got this content, and you can go on social media, and often, with algorithms and with the type of content that these algorithm thinks that you're going to like, sometimes the information you're getting isn't accurate. Oftentimes it's not accurate. And what I've seen is, even in the interactions I've had with individuals, is sometimes they're taking that information as truth, without doing the homework or the research and really digging in to see if it's true. And it may be information that paints a negative light on the law enforcement industry, on modern policing, and the way that we practice policing, and it's completely inaccurate, or it's a myth. It's not true. And so I always encourage people, instead of, if you have questions about, hey, is this true? Are you guys doing this type of stuff? Or is this how you practice law enforcement in Ventura County? Um, Come on a ride along, go through
Yeah.
the Citizens Academy, learn about what we actually do and how we do it. That's where you're really going to get the truth about how we operate. And what you're going to experience is a group of men and women who exude extreme professionalism, who again exercise emotional intelligence like we've talked about, and to truly care about this community and want to make sure that it remains safe. That's what I see day in and day out. And I always encourage people, if you ever have any doubts about that, please take the extra time to come out and meet the people here at the Moorpark station, because we have a wonderful team here.
Well, and as a citizen of Moorpark in our community, I see exactly what you're saying. I mean, I went on the ride-alongs. My wife and I both participated in the Citizens Academy. It was so eye-opening and so educational, because between the media and all the political noise, people sometimes just take what they hear as the truth without doing their own research or without educating themselves. And I find that that's often the cause of so much of the divide, is the inaccuracy in information, or the misunderstanding of some information. Well, talking about being misunderstood, human trafficking can sometimes be misunderstood. What are some realities that the public needs to better understand about this issue?
It's like I mentioned earlier, human trafficking is a very complex crime to investigate, and it's terribly misunderstood, not just by the general public, but often by law enforcement, unless you're actually investigating these types of crimes. And I fell victim to that as well. I came from investigating narcotics to going over to human trafficking as an investigator. And I thought I knew what human trafficking was. I had no clue. A lot of times people connect human trafficking with commercial sex, and they think that that's what human trafficking is. It's exploitation to commercial sex, and that's a part of what human trafficking is. But human trafficking also has many different forms, and we talk about labor trafficking. For example, in some of the cases that I investigated, we had people working in restaurants who were trafficking victims being forced to work out of restaurants here in Ventura County. Our agriculture, the people who are picking produce, being exploited and forced into doing that forced labor. Our hospitality industry is another example where the person cleaning your room, they may be exploited and being forced to do that. And the way that looks can change. Oftentimes, they're recruited into this and told that they're going to make a certain amount of money, but then ultimately they've got a trafficker, a suspect, who is taking that money from them and then telling them, if you don't keep doing this work, I'm going to threaten your family. I know where they live, or I know you've got a child and they're going to be harmed if you don't do this type of stuff. If you say anything to the police, you're going to be harmed. And so there's that. And oftentimes the victims of human trafficking they don't understand that they're victims. They just think that they're in a really bad situation. So it's not like we're getting phone calls saying, hey, I'm a victim of human trafficking, because a lot of times they don't make that connection, which again makes it terribly complicated. And with these types of trafficking cases, one of the most challenging pieces from an investigative standpoint is often these crimes involve multiple victims, and not just victims in the same location. We may have a victim in Ventura County. You may have a victim in another state that's all connected to the same trafficker. You may have multiple suspects in the case. And then it's geographically, like I mentioned, there's several different jurisdictions that may be at play in these cases. And from a criminal investigative perspective, that makes it extremely challenging to investigate. And that's where the collaboration and the working with nonprofit organizations, working with service providers, working with other law enforcement agencies who specialize in human trafficking becomes absolutely essential to be successful in these types of cases. And that's ultimately what we did with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office to be successful in some of the cases that we put together.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. What first drew you to specializing in human trafficking? I mean, and how has that work changed since you started?
For me, it was truly a calling. So I'm a Christian. I'm a believer in God, and I really felt called to do this. There was an opportunity with the sheriff's office to help investigate a human trafficking case, and I took that opportunity. I really was drawn to it. I wanted the challenge. I recognized that there was more to these cases than initially I thought, and I really wanted to understand it and ultimately to be able to help people. That's the whole reason I got into the sheriff's office and into this industry, was to help people, and I felt like this was the next step for me to be able to help people, and as well as to do it in a way where I felt like I could add something to it, and I took a lot what I learned from narcotics investigations, which are essentially organized crime investigations. I took a lot of those investigative techniques and applied them into trafficking, and had a lot of success. And it also helped me build a network of people, like I mentioned earlier, who are all involved in different parts of helping victims in trafficking, helping identify suspects of these trafficking, and helping to tamp down the demand that exists in human trafficking. And so that ultimately that draw is what led me into it, and that motivation we talked about really inspired me to do better and reach out and learn more about how I can become a better investigator in order to solve these cases.
And how has it changed since you started?
It's changed in the sense with the criminal investigative piece, the technology has made these cases both harder to investigate and easier in some respects. A lot of these trafficking organizations, they're leveraging technology to communicate. So, where before, you use your phone, you pick up the phone and you call. Well, now they're using applications that are encrypted to communicate with each other. And that is a real challenge. As an investigator, it's hard to get that information to be able to prove human trafficking, to be able to prove that somebody was forced or coerced to commit this type of labor, whatever it is. It becomes really challenging when you can't get some of the information you need to be able to prove up the case. And that's where we see the change. What you're seeing though, and it's this cat and mouse game. So it's, you see suspects in these cases are leveraging new technology to hide or conceal what they're doing. But then you're also seeing on the law enforcement side, and some of these nonprofit organizations are finding new technology as well to counter that, to be able to find that and dig into the information that we may not have access to right now. And you're seeing that constant shuffle and move in order to prove up these cases and to be effective investigators.
Well, and like you said, I mean, technology makes things easier in some respects and much harder in others. I mean, I look at how just law enforcement in general. I was so amazed at the use of drones and all the other technology that's being adopted that you just didn't have access to prior to. So, a lot of new things are helping, but for the criminals, it's giving them more ways to be better at being criminals. And so, I mean, that's where the extra challenge lies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, you've led at both local and national levels. What leadership lessons translate no matter the size of the organization?
Yeah. So one thing I didn't share is, I was the treasurer for the Peace Officers Research Association of California. It's a law enforcement labor association that works with representatives Sacramento, Washington, D.C. I served on that board for 4 years in a leadership role. I was also the president of the Ventura County Deputy Sheriff's Association, representing law enforcement officers here in Ventura County. And in each of these leadership roles that I've held, it all boils down, in my belief, about putting people first. And that's putting the people who you're overseeing first. That's putting the people who benefit from the work that you do first. And when you put people first, you start to see success because you build trusted relationships. You start to develop a communication that otherwise wouldn't exist. And what I found, even in my short time here as the police chief in Moorpark, one of the things I implemented day one is one-on-ones. So everybody at the station will sit down and have a one-on-one with me. And it's not for me to tell them my expectations. They know that already. But it's for me to better understand, how can I do a better job for you? What do you need to be successful? What equipment do we need to be successful here in Moorpark? Because the further I get away from being the rubber on the road, the deputy on the street, you can lose touch if you're not maintaining that level of communication and that connection. And what that has allowed is it builds trusted relationships regardless of your rank. It keeps an open dialogue, and it's allowed us to become more successful by simply communicating with each other. And a lot of times that's lost. And I know a lot of times there's confusion about, well, if I need to be a manager, I have to hold my people accountable. That comes naturally. If somebody makes a mistake, you address it. But the communication piece is key. And what I've found is oftentimes with communication, you often prevent those issues because people know the expectations up front. They know what that was expected of them, and you're giving them the resources and the tools they need to be successful. Those are the things that carry across any leadership role that I've had. That has been a common theme in each one of those.
And I see that. You're such an approachable person, right? In the role that you're in. I mean, you're in a very high up role, and it could be very easy for you to disconnect and kind of sit from the top and hand down the orders, and that can be in any industry, in any organization, in any leadership role. I believe you when you say that the connection is so important, because when you have that connection with the people because you're serving, what people don't realize is people at the top are really serving the people that are serving others. It's not necessarily, I get to tell you what to do. I just hand down the orders and you get it done. Your job is to serve your people, and your people will serve the community even better. And I notice that is very noticeable. And I think that also from past leadership that's been noticeable, and that's what makes our police department it's so amazing. And I mean, we have to brag a little bit, right? Because Moorpark is the third safest city, right? Is that still, we can still hold to that?
I think so. Yeah, we'll find out, I think, in the next few months where we land. We should be good though.
But again, I think that important point that you talk about, the connection, I think those one-on-ones, I think a lot of people can learn a lot from that in any leadership role, because once that disconnect is there, everything starts to kind of crumble. And quick shout out to another local leader, Daniel Groff. Thanks for watching, bud. He said, two of Moorpark's best people. Hello, Nick. And hello. Yep, we're here. Thanks. Thank you, Daniel. I've been meaning to ask this because I think some people get confused or some people don't understand. And we have your office is one of the only in California, I believe, right, that shares Ventura County Sheriff's Office and the
The Highway
California
Patrol.
Highway Patrol. See,
Yeah.
right, yeah. So they're both
Yeah.
in the same office. And what is the difference when you talk about Ventura County Sheriff's Office and Moorpark Police Department?
Yeah. So one, yes. So we are the only, Moorpark Police Station is the only station in the state of California that houses the California Highway Patrol and a local law enforcement agency in the same building. And it's been wonderful. They need to replicate this model. I'm a firm believer in it because it has allowed, like we just talked about, the communication with each other. That connection piece is crucial. And so I can go walk to the next hallway and go talk to their captain, Heather, about, hey, these are the issues we have. Or, hey, you guys are the expert when it comes to traffic investigations. We had this traffic accident. Can you help us? And vice versa. Hey, we had this assault on the freeway. You guys are the experts in investigating that. Can you help us with that case? And so that has opened dialogue and communication in ways that otherwise wouldn't exist if we were not co-located like we are. And then to answer your question, as it relates to the Moorpark Police Department and the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, we're essentially one and the same. So the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, I'm a captain for the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. I've been a deputy with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, worked for the Sheriff's Office for 24 years. But the City of Moorpark contracts with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office to provide police services. So yes, it's a Moorpark Police Department, but the people who are working in the patrol cars, the people who are working at the station, the detectives, they're all deputy sheriffs with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. And it's a similar model in Thousand Oaks, Camarillo, Fillmore, and Ojai, as well as all the unincorporated space in Ventura County.
All right. Thanks for answering that. I know that that's a question that a lot of people, because you see, when you see the cars, it says Ventura County Sheriff's Office on the department on the back, and then you've got Moorpark Police on the side, and people are like, wait, how does that go? Right. Hey, quick shout out again. It's like all of city council, past city council, school board chiming in today. But Renee says, thank you, Nick, and the entire department for your incredible work you do for our city. Thank you, Renee, and thank you for all that you do for our city. One of our council members. Thank you. Let's talk in today's climate. What do you believe is the biggest challenge facing modern policing, and how do we continue moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. Although the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, we don't have this issue any longer. I mean, thank you to Sheriff Fryhoff for the work his team has done. But recruitment is a huge issue. We don't have to look very far. I mean, LA County, LA Police Department, they're both short about 1,000 officers, deputies each. Recruitment is a big deal. We need more law enforcement officers in the state. There's a huge shortage statewide. Our sheriff's office, we're at capacity. We're at our numbers. I think it speaks to the reputation we have throughout the state. It speaks to the level of professionalism, the way that we conduct ourselves. What we're seeing is people coming here lateraling from other agencies to join the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. So we're in a very good place. But other agencies unfortunately are not, and they're struggling. And that needs to be fixed, because ultimately, what does that translate to? When you're short people, all that means is the people who are still there are working, twice as much to fill the gaps. Because again, 365, 24/7, somebody's got to be in the patrol car providing patrol services. And when you're short, that means somebody's working a lot of overtime. And that's what leads to burnout. And with burnout, people will make bad decisions. People will find another industry, another job to get involved in. They'll leave law enforcement altogether, or they're just going to go to another agency where they know that the grass is greener, those issues don't exist. So that's challenge number one in my mind. I think the second piece goes to what we talked about earlier as it relates to some of the misinformation about law enforcement in general. And building that community connection that we talked about. We're very fortunate in the city of Moorpark and really in Ventura County as a whole to have a really strong community connection. But as law enforcement officers, at the end of the day, we're public servants. That is our role. And as public servants, I believe it is absolutely crucial that you maintain contact with the people that you're serving. You have to have communication with the community and have to have a trusted relationship with community leaders, because once you lose that, it's going to get really bad. And things will only get worse if you don't have that connection and community piece.
Well, again, I brought it up a couple times. I know the Citizens Academy. There'll be another one coming out within the next few months, I think you said, and
right.
Also I see often that we're doing coffee with a cop at different locations here in Moorpark. What are some other ways that people can get or get involved or get to know their local law enforcement? What are some other opportunities for that?
Yeah, I strongly encourage ride-alongs. I am happy to meet with you one-on-one. I've done that several times in the time I've been here with people who simply have questions about, like, what do we do as law enforcement? What does it look like here? I've done a number of presentations to community groups too. So if you're part of a community group in the city of Moorpark and you want to learn more about the police department, I'm happy to give you a presentation that talks about not just the stats on how many calls for service we have in a year, the types of crimes that we respond to, but also to talk to you about, our role here in the police department, how many patrol officers we have working, how we respond to certain things. So you get a more in-depth understanding of what we do. But again, that's all surface level. It would be an hour at most presentation. I would strongly encourage a Citizen Academy, strongly encourage a ride along. Come meet us at a coffee with a cop. Those are the things that you'll start to better understand really what we do, because you'll see it firsthand.
Mm-hmm. And I know that we have a school resource officer, and talk a little bit about how that officer gets involved at the school levels. Because I know there's a lot of students that are like, oh, there's so and so, and they start to have this relationship. And I never had any. We didn't have a resource officer at my school growing up, but having one on campus or seeing one on campus, kind of, there's that presence and that education that comes along with it. Talk a little bit about how the resource officer works with the schools, and how the police department also works with the schools in education.
Yeah, so we do have one school resource officer that's assigned to the Moorpark Unified School District. Most of the time is spent at the high school, but that school resource officer is a leader in our community, and it's a connection for kids to see that, hey, yeah, that person's in uniform, but you know what? They're actually a really good person. And so what it does, and what I've seen, is it really breaks down some of the misinformation or the myths that kids may have going into what they believe law enforcement officers are. They may not have had any connection or contact with law enforcement officers other than seeing a patrol car drive down the street, or seeing a law enforcement officer conduct a traffic stop, or see them talking to somebody. And what this allows them to do is actually get to meet the person behind the badge and really get to know who they are, and realize that, you know what, they're actually can be a role model in my life. The way that they carry themselves and the way that they work with kids at the schools. And I think that is where the most value is in school resource officers. It lets them know, you know what, that the police department, these are actually good people that I can go to when I need help. And there's somebody that I can say hi to when I'm walking down the hallways. And they're good people, and they care about the community, they care about the school, they care about me, and they want to make sure I'm safe so I get a good education. At the end of the day, in my mind, that is the most more important piece as a school resource officer. That's what it brings. And I've seen that over and over again. I'm obviously in regular contact with our school resource officer, and every week I hear stories just like that about, hey, we had contact, this kid, was having an issue. We worked through it, and they develop a trusted relationship with them, so that it's beyond just that one issue that came up, but then through their whole career at the unified school district, they're continuing that connection, and again, that builds that important trusted community connection that we talked about. It's not just about making the connection with community leaders, but our kids who are going to be community leaders at some point. That is vital. It's vital for our children to know that our police department is here to help them.
Absolutely. No, I love it. I love it. How does a background in psychology and criminal behavior influence the way you approach investigations and people?
Yeah, so when I was at Cal Lutheran, majored in psychology with an emphasis in criminal behavior, and for me, and I guess I should back up. When I went to Cal Lutheran University, in my mind, I was not going to be a law enforcement officer. I was going to go back to Orange County. I was going to be a high school counselor. I was going to maybe be a coach for the football team. And about my sophomore year at Cal Lutheran, I realized, at least in my mind, I was like, I don't know if I could sit at a desk, Monday through Friday and counsel. I need to be out and about, and I need to move around. And I thought, like, what can I do with the psychology degree, and how can I apply it to help people? Because I still was passionate about helping people. And ultimately it led me to law enforcement. And by the beginning of my senior year, I applied to the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. And this degree, and I just talked to the president at Cal Lutheran University, Dr. Nunez, and I let him know I'm using this degree every single day, this psychology degree, because at the end of the day, what you're doing is psychology degree allowed me to learn about myself. Like, what are my triggers? What do I respond to? How do I respond to things? Where are areas where I can grow? How can I develop my interpersonal skills? But it also helped me better understand how to communicate with people, how to work with people. How do we work through crisis? It's helping you develop all the skills that you're going to use when you go work in a jail facility, when you work in a patrol capacity, when you work as an investigator. And so again, it was a great degree to have to get into law enforcement. In fact, anybody who asked me, like, what should I do? I'm about to go to college. I'm very interested in becoming a law enforcement officer. I tell them to consider a degree in psychology, because again, it's going to give you some of those foundational skills that are going to benefit you in the long run to become a quality law enforcement officer.
Yeah. You brought up as soon as you brought up the word crisis, I immediately remember a drill or an exercise we did as part of Ventura County Leadership Academy. We went to the Reagan Library and did the situation room. And the first time that I ever did the situation room, I was the chief of police. That was my role. And I remember coming out of that exercise, like, I was so like, just dealing with that crisis. We had the fire situation. I don't know if you've done that one at the situation.
I have, actually.
And it's like, and I had a pretty big role in communication throughout that whole thing. And I was just thinking, the stuff that you guys go through and the quick decisions that you have to make, like, I'm so glad it's not me, because that was just, I was blown away. But having said everything that you've talked about, it helps me to understand, your education has helped, your background has helped, the training you've had has helped you, so much. When you talk about service, and I wonder, where does that come from, in your upbringing with your parents? Was that something that you learned and something that you witnessed and something that they were an example of?
They were. Yeah, they were. I mean, my father, he owned a restaurant, and so at a very young age during the summers, I would go to work with him, and I would bus tables, I would peel carrots, chop onions. So he taught me what it meant to have a strong work ethic, but also those car rides to and from his work, we talked about what it meant for the people that were working at the restaurant. So my dad was very aware that the people there, their livelihood depended on his ability to have a restaurant there, to keep it running, to make sure that that customers are still coming through the door. And so that level of work ethic, and it helped me to start to understand that, yeah, he's running a restaurant, but he's also helping people in the service that he's providing. And so I think it started there. And with my mom, she was a homemaker, but she was very good about communication. And so the communication skills certainly came from my mom, and she really was not afraid to ask tough questions. She was not afraid to challenge me as I was growing and developing, and really helped me to start learning and looking inward on myself. Like, who am I as a person? What do I want to do? What role do I want to serve? Uh, that is really, I think, the baseline that has helped me grow into that desire for service.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I was because you're such a service focused person. I mean, you're a law enforcement officer. You are a member of Rotary. I mean, you're out doing things. You're involved. You're active. You're engaged. So I just thank you for sharing that part of your life with us. This is an important question that I'm going to put up here. Sarah Sauer is asking, and I'm surprised we didn't get this question sooner, but she wants me to ask you about shooter training for the public. I'm assuming active shooter, as we sometimes say in our training, active killer.
Yep.
Talk about this for the public.
Yeah, so the sheriff's office does put on trainings. Typically, they put on trainings for businesses, for schools, and they'll do two types of training. So we'll do the training for first responder, how we respond to a mass casualty situation, like an active shooter or a mass killing of some sort. But then there's another training that's put on where we focus on what do you do if you're in a situation where now that's come to you and you're going to be a potential victim, and what are the steps that you need to take to protect yourself, to protect your children, to protect your coworkers, whatever the situation might be. And I would encourage Sarah, feel free to reach out to me at the police department, and we can talk about specifically the training opportunities we have for your particular situation, because it does vary depending on what you're looking for. But yeah, the sheriff's office would be happy to help. And if you're looking for something that maybe we don't offer, I can connect you to other organizations that'd be happy to help you out.
And is our police department involved in the training of our school district training for our teachers, or is that contracted to somebody else?
So the school district does contract out for mass casualty training, although we've done some informal training with the school district as well through our school resource officer. So it has been a combination of the two.
And is that something that's done once a year? Is it something that's ongoing? So the parents understand, like, how safe are my kids at school if something happens? You know, how prepared are the teachers?
Yeah, it's ongoing. So we do things as even going through like the facility and doing school assessments. So like recently had a conversation with Dr. Hayes, the Moorpark Unified School District superintendent, about doing another assessment where we go through the schools and say, hey, you may want to shore up, this fence, or you may want to redesign this entryway, or talk about how, you may want to have people come and go through this access point as opposed to this. We do those types of things because those baseline facility issues are crucial, and will buy additional time for first responders to get there and address whatever the issue might be, as well as keep people safe. So we do those types of things, as well as working through our school resource officer, where they're working with teachers to talk about, hey, this is what I would do in this situation. Oftentimes teachers will ask, hey, what should I do in an active shooter situation? they'll work with the school resource officer to provide some of that informal training on top of the contracted training that they're going through.
All right. Well, Sarah, thank you for your question and comment, and I hope that suffices for now, but you can obviously reach out to Captain Odenath, and he'll be happy to provide you with any resources that you need, any education that you need as well. Just going to dive into the final question for today. Looking back on your career, what is the one moment or moments that you're most proud of, and why?
For me, I mean, there's obviously a lot of different moments, but if I were to pick one in particular, it goes back to human trafficking investigations. There's one investigation that took a whole lot of collaboration. It was a case that took us 3.5 years to ultimately reach prosecution, and it was a lot of work. It far and away the most complicated investigation that I've ever had the opportunity to be involved in. But we were also, I was surrounded by really, really good investigators. So I had a partner who's now just recently promoted to captain named Aaron Grass. I had a special agent with the Franchise Tax Board named Lisa Gunson. We had a wonderful supervisor, now Captain Jason Hendren, who we took on this case. We knew it was going to be, it was going to push our capacity as investigators. And it involved trafficking where the victims were coming from China and Taiwan, so they didn't speak the language. They were being brought to the United States under false pretense. And then they were being forced into commercial sex. And it was happening not just in Ventura County, but it was happening throughout the state. And so it required us to work with a whole bunch of different agencies, with a number of different nonprofit organizations. We were working with the Taiwanese government as part of the investigation, with the FBI. We had worked with a wonderful special agent from the FBI named Corey Lyle. And through just never giving up, and our motto was never give up and always do the right thing, always do the right thing for the victims. We ultimately, through the California Attorney General's office, were able to get a prosecution on all of our 5 primary suspects in the case. They were sentenced to prison. We made contact with a whole bunch of different victims throughout the state, and we were able to get them services that otherwise they would have never received, and so that they can move on with their lives and get them back to their families. That far and away, it was definitely one of the hardest times in my career, but also one of the most rewarding.
That's awesome. Well, it's great. I love hearing success stories like that. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So thanks for being on the show today. Thanks for agreeing to talk with me for an hour. I know that you've got a lot of stuff to do today, especially after the new year and everything getting started. But how can people, you've mentioned that people can reach out to you. How can they reach out to you? How do they connect with you? How do they contact you?
Yeah, just go online, Moorpark Police Department, call our general number, and ask to speak to me about whatever the issue is, whether it's active shooter training, or if you want to meet, if you want to have a one-on-one meeting to talk about other issues in the city, or things that you think that we can do to provide a better service to the city, I'd love to hear it. Again, it's about communication. I believe that's vitally important. And so you can call our number. It's 805-532-2700. And that line is answered by a real person, and they're there Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. And they'll get you in contact with me, and I'd love to talk to you, even if it's just to say hi, and you want to meet for coffee or learn more about the police department. I'd be happy to do that.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for sharing all of that. And thanks again for being on the show. Appreciate everything you do in our community, and look forward to seeing you next week at Rotary again.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Of course. You're welcome. All right, guys, that's it for Master Motivation. I'm Jason Flame. This was Nick Odenath, And we'll see you guys next week. And I think I have John Bandek coming up. So that'll be a fun interview as well. Thanks again, Nick. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.
Take care.